Slow practice won't save you unless you fix these 7 things. If you've been practicing faithfully, but your playing still falls apart when you speed up, why should you listen to me? Well, I performed in Carnegie Hall. I have almost 50 years teaching experience, and some of my students ended up playing on from the top. Mistake number 1, don't make a mistake, correct it, and then keep going. Do play at a tempo where you can be 100% sure that you're doing it correctly. You're playing along, and you make a mistake, and then you correct it, and then you keep going. You don't want to practice that because that's not what is in your piece. You don't have 2 notes there. You have 1 note. You want to go at a speed where you can be sure that you hit the one right note. But if you're practicing slowly, and even though you're going slowly, you're still practicing mistakes, it's a complete waste of time. You might as well not bother. I made you a free guide called Turbocharge Your Practice. It'll walk you through the 7 biggest practice mistakes and exactly how to fix them. You can grab it at the link below this video. Everything in it applies to slow practice because it's built on how the brain actually learns, backed by modern neuroscience research, not just hand-me-down piano advice from somebody's grandmother. And some of that stuff is great and some of it is junk. This guide will show you what actually works. So now you're playing it clean. That is fantastic. But here's where most people blow it. They just tackle way too much at once. One of my YouTube commenters told me that he was working away with this great method, which was that he played his piece very slowly all the way through at 1 metronome tempo, and then he increased the metronome very slightly, and then he played the whole thing all the way through again, etc. It seems like that should be, it's so diligent, he's trying so hard, that should work great. No, that is a total waste of time. And the reason is the way that works is you have to first put things into your short-term memory repeatedly, and then they will eventually be transferred from short-term memory to long-term memory. The issue is the short-term memory only holds 3 to 5, maybe 7 items at a time. So that means if you play, 700,000 items in a row, your brain will only encode the first 3 to 7 items. That's probably why you feel like, oh, I'm practicing all the time, but I'm not remembering anything. I come back the next day and it's just as bad as it was the day before. Well, that's because possibly you were doing this. You're playing too long of sections. And so a lot of the time that you spent, it didn't go into long-term memory. So what's the cure? You want to practice in very small chunks, 3 to 5 items. So in my little example I'm using here, let's say I don't know the piece, maybe that's 4 things, depending on how you count the turn. Maybe I can go. So that would be plenty. That's if I don't know the piece. Now, people ask me all the time, what's an item? It depends on how you process music in your brain. So if you're a beginner and you look at the staff and it's a lot of effort to know what the note is and how to get the correct finger to play, that's 1 item. Now, if you're a very advanced player and you look at something or other that you're playing and you say, that's a broken D-flat major triad, and even though there's 400 notes, you know that that's this one broken triad, well, that's one thing for you. So that's what I mean when I say it's individual. It depends on how your brain processes music. And this is also why it's a good idea to work on theory and sight reading so that you can conceptualize music in bigger and bigger pieces. It will enable you to learn things faster because your chunks can be bigger. When I used to teach kids, I would explain it to them this way. I said, if your mom and dad serve you your dinner, you don't take the whole plate of food and shove your face in it. You take your fork and you eat 1 bite at a time. Same way with the brain. It's got to take in little bites at a time, process them, and then digest them. So you cannot shove gigantic pieces of things into your brain. It just won't work. It's a waste of time. Chunking will fix accuracy and it will speed up your learning, but it won't speed up your final tempo. Don't only practice slowly and hope someday that you'll be able to play your piece faster. And what you do want to do is be sure when you're practicing slowly that what it is that you're practicing is something that you can do when it's time to go fast. So what am I talking about? Well, one example is certain movements are never going to be fast, like this one, opening your fingers. Go ahead, practice that. See how fast you can get that. It is never going to be as fast as just leaping across the keyboard or playing with your fingers closed more closely. So a final important thing is making sure that you have fingerings that work to go fast. Some fingerings are fine if you're playing slowly, if you have lots of time to move your hand to wherever. But certain fingerings are impossible in speed. So you have to, when you're deciding on your fingerings, it's very important to try out little tiny bits fast and see, can I do those 3 notes fast with the fingering that I'm choosing? Can I do that leap from, note A to note B quickly when I use the fingering that I'm choosing? If not, let me find a different one. You don't want to pattern in a fingering that's not going to work when you go fast. So an example of a fingering for my impromptu here that goes fast that wouldn't work, it's kind of a dumb example, but just bear with me, is if let's say I did, like I went to finger 3 here. That's not going to happen in speed. It's too big a leap. I'm much better off going to the 5th finger. So I could find that out by, it's just not as good. This is good. So that's what I'm talking about when I say test out little bits and see if they will go fast enough. I recently asked my audience, if you had a magic wand, what would you change about your piano playing? A lot of people said what Janice said. I'm playing notes, not music. If that feels familiar, you're going to want to hear this next part. So another important thing to do when you're practicing slowly is, to the best of your ability, to incorporate the musicality and how you want the music to sound. So you don't end up sounding like... So if I'm practicing... no matter how fast I play that, that's not going to sound good. How do you do that? How do you practice in musicality? One important thing is to get in your mind how you think the piece should sound. How do you do that? Well, the best way is to listen to a lot of recordings. Sit with your score, listen to recordings. Some teachers I know say don't listen before you get started. I don't agree. I think you've got to build this ideal image of the piece in your mind so that you can then pattern your work around where it is you're trying to get to. I have a whole video on this, how to play with emotion, my step-by-step approach, something like that, where I talk about how to look at the score, how to figure out where you should get louder and softer, where you should speed up and slow down. And really, musical playing has a lot of small changes of dynamic from loud to soft to loud to soft. Many per measure. Like almost never are 2 notes exactly the same volume. So it takes time to figure all this out, but you will learn it better and with less total time invested if you're practicing that way from the beginning, so that you don't have to unlearn all the mechanical sounds that you have programmed into your nervous system. So I have here on my Chopin, I have, things are marked, right? And this is very straightforward to me anyway, that you would not play all of the left-hand notes the same volume. It would not be that, because it's going to be too loud with the right hand over it. You would want to play... So I would be practicing that way from the beginning, with more sound here and less sound on the other notes in the right hand. And we have, from Fred himself, we have a mark that says it's supposed to get louder. So I can practice like that. Maybe that's a little exaggerated, but it's better than practicing every single note the same volume and then having to go back there and completely reinvent the wheel as I try to speed the piece up. And I used to think, well, if I played enough times, then eventually I would kind of know how I wanted it to go, and then it'll be musical. And I also have students say to me, well, first I got to get the notes and the rhythm, and I'll worry about that other music stuff later. It is a much longer road to take. It's much harder at the beginning, but you will get to where you want to go faster if you figure out what you want musically and practice it that way from the beginning. You've made it musical, and that is great. But here's the trap. Repetition doesn't make learning permanent. It just hardwires your fingers or muscle memory. And this is why you can play something a million times at your house, great, and then it falls apart in your lesson or at a friend's house. To really own it, you need more layers of learning. How it sounds, the structure, the patterns, not just muscle memory. Don't rely on just repetition to learn your piece well. I had one student who came, she said when she was a little girl, her teacher said she had to put a box of matches on one side of the piano She had to play the whole piece through perfectly. If she did, she could take one match and stick it over there. And she had to do that until the box of matches was empty. And if she messed up, she had to take all the matches and stick them back over on the right side. And I have to tell you, I'm amazed this young woman is still playing the piano, because that is a colossal waste of time. As I said before, that's way too long. She wasn't retaining most of what she was doing. It's boring. The final reason it's a bad idea is you're just relying on repetition to get the notes into your muscle memory so that they're so-called automatic. But that does actually not work. You will get it into what's called your procedural memory, where you have reflex, physical reflex, to play the notes in a certain order. But lots of studies have shown that kind of memory is very, very fragile. If you take it out of the context where you learned whatever it is you're learning and you try to go recall the information somewhere else, it's very fragile if you only have this procedural memory. So it's much more effective if you can overlay other types of learning on top of it, like mental practice, for example, which would mean trying to imagine in your head some aspect of what it is you're trying to learn. Like, what do you want it to sound like? What do the movements feel like in your hand? And I do find it's highly effective to do just physical practice, like, and then do mental practice. I'm just going to rehearse and hear what it was I just did. That would be what I would do. I'm not going to do it on the video. It's very boring to watch. Chopin was famous for really advocating this kind of mindful practice. I have a quote here from the book Chopin and His Pupils. Apparently, Musicality said this. He was like a primary advocate for Chopin. He did a lot of the sermon editions of Chopin. He said, Chopin stressed that one must think and feel every note before playing. Now, another way to make your learning much, much more durable is to do what's called variable practice. So once you have your notes and your fingerings, then you can try switching things up a little bit. So instead of playing it all legato, you could play it staccato, or you could put the dynamics backwards, for example. Another thing to do is to be thinking about the patterns of what it is that you're playing as you're playing it. So for my piece, I know this is an A flat major chord, and then now I've got this D, which is not part of the A flat major chord. So I have like this one note that's kind of like a note that's off. And now I've got an E flat 7 and a note that's off. So I'm practicing thinking that while I'm playing. Because if I don't practice thinking it, when I go to play it really fast, there's no way I'll be able to think that. I have to build that script into my mind. That thread of understanding what it is you're doing and where you are in your complete piece will be with you when you go to play in some other context. And I think you'll find that your learning will be much, much more durable and will last longer, and you'll play more effectively when you go to new places. But what if you understand every pattern, you're always using the same fingering, and you still keep making mistakes like hitting wrong notes or having to stop? So another thing that you don't want to do is repeat mindlessly. And that goes back to the story I told about my student who had to play her piece as many times as there were matches in the box of matches. She had no tools from her teacher about what to do when she made mistakes. So what's important to do when you're practicing, if you make a mistake, you need to stop and figure out, why did I make that mistake? Did I play the wrong fingering? Was my arm in the wrong place? Did my mind wander? Why did my mind wander? Oh, I was playing too long of a chunk. That's why. Was the pedaling wrong? Did I forget the pedal? There's kind of an infinite number of lists of things that could go wrong. You may not be able to figure all of them out yourself. And this is where you want to walk in the steps of those who have gone ahead. And if you try to figure them out, you're going to get a bunch of them right, and you're going to move yourself forward. So it's a very good habit mentally to be inquiring and wondering, why did you make a mistake? And then coming up with a theory about why and try to apply it in your next iteration of whatever it is that you're practicing. See if I can do an example with my impromptu here. So let's say, so I missed the leap. So I think I'm moving my arm too far. I have to move it a little bit. I'm going too far. It has to feel like that. It has to feel like that. So I'm going to maybe imagine it. Now I'm going to try it again. Feels like this. This is kind of detective type thinking you want to train yourself to engage in. And one other thing about it that's nice is it makes practicing less boring. Because you're not just repeating it and just hoping that something's going to change. You are actively involved in what it is you're doing, and it's much more interesting. I like to do practice because it is like a puzzle, except for it's a puzzle I can do. I'm not that good at like Sudoku and stuff like that, but I'm good at practicing. It's also why I like teaching. I like solving the puzzles for my students too. I think it's fun. There are a lot of reasons that things can go wrong at the piano, and even if I could fit them all into videos, it wouldn't help you much. The real challenge is knowing which solution fits the problem that you are having. And that's what we do inside Piano with Rebecca B. In our live Q&As and community discussions, I will help you pinpoint what's really going on so you can finally fix the problems that have been stumping you and start moving forward again. So the final hack that will actually make a pretty amazing difference in how fast you learn something is to rest more. Don't just keep going and going and going. Do take breaks. Now, what kind of breaks are we talking about? Well, there's any break is better than no break. Let's start with that. Let's say you're doing what I was saying about the tiny chunks. You're just learning your piece. I would say play your piece 3 times. Take a 5 to 10 second break. I'm sorry, not your piece, your little chunk. 5 to 10 second break, not very long. And then play it 3 more times. So that's a good break for the tiny chunk method. And once you're done with your one tiny chunk, you played it 6 times, you're going to go on to the next tiny chunk. You are not going to keep playing the first one 700 times until you think it's good enough. The last 694 of them are a waste of time. What makes you learn things is actually putting it into the short-term memory. So when you take the break, what happens is you're probably going to forget what it is that you just did. And that's what we want. And then you're going to go back to it later and you're going to put it back in your short-term memory again. And it's that repeated retrieving of information that makes the learning permanent. So the break between one set of tiny chunks and the next, it could be just going on to the next little bit in your piece. It could be playing a piece that's entirely different. So there's a practice technique called interleaving. Now, if you were doing sports, let's say you're doing basketball, you might do like jump shots, you might do some dribbling practice, and you might have to like run laps around the court, and then you're going to go back and do some free throws. You're going to be mixing it up, right? You don't just do 25 minutes of free throws and then move on to the next thing. So you're constantly switching. That's what makes the learning much more durable. And of course, when you're playing basketball, you do not do 25 minutes of free throws. So you don't want to be practicing something that you don't actually do when you're playing. Now, here's the weird part. You don't actually get better when you're playing. You get better when you're resting. And why is that? Well, they've done studies. I'm not sure how they did this, but when someone reviews something and then stops consciously doing whatever it is, the brain is actually rehearsing what it is that they just did during that rest break. Your mind is rehearsing, without you being aware of it, what it was that you just did. And another type of break that's really, really important is sleep. So the brain is consolidating learning while you're sleeping. And what does that tell us about the best way to practice? Well, it's very good to review something that you're really trying to learn right before you go to bed, so that it's really recently, put into your memory, and your brain can rehearse it while you're sleeping. And a final kind of break that's good to know about is it's good to sometimes take a day off from practicing your piece or whatever piece you're working on, and then practice something else. So you're mixing it up. You don't every single day practice the exact same stuff. And those spaced repetitions can really make a difference in how fast you can learn something. You might have had that experience, like you worked on something for a while, then you went away for the weekend and you came back and suddenly it was better than the last time that you played it. And it's pretty exciting when that happens. Now, it may not be better. It depends on how long you waited for and the exact length of time to wait. But when you're taking days off, there's a pretty specific spacing that's advantageous. And I work on those kinds of things inside my community with my members. Slow practice only works when it's also smart practice, when every minute is doing real work for you and your brain. If you want to go deeper and start practicing in a way that actually sticks, be sure to grab my free guide, Turbocharge Your Practice. The link is in the description. And if you want my help in applying those ideas to your own playing, join me in Piano with Rebecca B. We'll fix what's holding you back, one piece at a time. And watch this video next to learn more about upping your practicing game.